we have to be able to actively listen and respond in a compassionate, loving way, as opposed to constantly flying off the handle, constantly fighting. You addressing an issue with something somebody has done to you or said or done to upset you doesn't always mean it's going to end in a fight. If you have somebody who's not going to argue, who's actually going to listen and talk and discuss and have a discussion and create boundaries and respect those boundaries going forward, it's not going to end up being a fight. When I was in my previous relationship with my ex, if I would bring forth an issue, it was a fight because she tried to deflect it back to me constantly and tell me things were and gaslight and tell me it was in my head, whatever it was, right? That's not effective communication. Growing up, if I would tell my mother, you did X, Y, Z, a lot of the times my mother would jump the gun and fly off the handle. My sister is the same exact way. And so the reason why the two of them bump heads is because they don't know how to speak to one another. If they could just figure out how to speak to one another and actively listen and discuss things and give each other the floor and stop being so defensive, they'd eliminate, I would say, a good 85% of the issues that they have with one another. Maybe even more. So the key is to not be like me, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm the perfect communicator, because I know for a fact I'm not. But the key is self-awareness. I know what I need to work on. I know that I need to stop avoiding situations. I need to stop being a yes man. I need to stop telling people yes when I mean no, just because I'm afraid to disappoint them, right? I need to address more issues in a certain manner that is obviously civil and mature. But then there are other people who in my life that I know who shut down. And when they have an issue, they run away and they don't speak at all. And it's not necessarily I guess it is kind of avoidant, but I'm an avoidant person, but I don't shut down. Shutting down's a whole new level of avoidance. You know what I mean? It's like, and I get it. It's a defense mechanism and it comes from, past traumas. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that because I know why I avoid situations or I avoid conversations is because I'm afraid of a fight. And I know that this person or whoever it is shuts down because of the same thing, because it's like, I'd rather shut down and not deal with it than fight. Sometimes you have to reassure people that it's not going to be a fight. I'm not trying to fight. I'm not trying to have drama. What I'm trying to do is address an issue or talk about an issue that you have and fix it and move forward and progress. That's the beauty of communication. How can I know what I do or what I need to change if you're not letting me know what it is I need to change? Or if you're not letting me know where your boundaries lie, if you're not letting me know how you feel, how am I supposed to act accordingly? How am I supposed to fix the behavior? You know what I mean? And by no means am I saying when somebody brings forth an issue to you that you have to change it. You know what I mean? Again, I was in a very toxic situation with my ex where she would bring up ridiculous things that had no merit in the grand scheme of things. She had issues with certain things that she shouldn't have had issues with, that I changed because I didn't want to hear her. That's also another level of being too empathetic and being too trusting in a person's issues, I guess you could say, and not questioning enough. There needs to be a balance is the whole moral of this. Is you need to have a balance in communication. You can't be the only one listening and making changes and doing the right thing, and you have to question where that person's intentions are. You have to question where that person is coming from, because if they're coming from a place of wanting to isolate you or wanting to control you, then obviously their issues that they're raising don't have any merit or backing behind them. And you shouldn't be listening. You know what I mean? When my ex was telling me she hated my friends and hated my family, and that the behavior that she wanted to see was basically me getting rid of every single person in my life, instead of me actively listening and taking that into consideration, I should have literally, that should have been a red flag in my head to say, you know what? Something's off here. Something's wrong. This person shouldn't be telling me to isolate myself. This person shouldn't be telling me to get rid of my friends and family and my whole support system. Why is this? You know what I mean? So there needs to be a balance. You can't be too receptive to somebody, especially if that somebody is trying to control you. You can't make excuses, too many excuses for people. But at the same time, you also have to be empathetic and be compassionate to that person and their feelings, as long as their feelings are fucking rational. You know what I mean? And we can innately differentiate between an irrational person and an irrational request and a rational, hey, this is a boundary of mine. You know what I mean? Go with your gut. But the main idea here is listening. A lot of the times when it comes to communication, it feels as though we don't necessarily have an issue with addressing things, especially in the midst of a fight. Even me, as an avoidant person, I don't really have an issue using my mouth to speak up about certain things. A lot of the times the issues lie with the receptivity of what the other person is saying. We don't listen. We're not a very listening society. We don't really listen that well. And the most healthy thing we can do in any relationship is listen. And instead of bringing shit up in the midst of a fight, in the heat of the moment, cool off, let yourself, cool down, but revisit the situation after you've cooled down and have a sit down with that person and let that person, if you truly care about them and you truly feel as though what you say won't fall on deaf ears and what you say will actually be taken into consideration. Don't fucking talk to somebody that you know is never going to fucking change. That's just wasting your breath. That person that you know, like my family, you know what I mean? You guys know, if you've been watching the podcast, you guys know that I had some falling outs with some family members over some shit. And my aunt verbally attacked me on Facebook. I haven't spoken to her. The reason why, she was like, let's have a sit down. The reason why I choose not to have a sit down with her isn't because I'm afraid to address issues. It's because I know for a fact that whatever I say is going to fall on deaf ears, and that she's set in her opinions and she's set in her behaviors and she's set in her belief systems about who she believes me to be as a human being. And to me, there's just no point in sitting down, going out of my way, taking time out of my day to go sit down with her and discuss certain issues when she's just, nothing is going to change. Because, in that respect, in that situation, it's been years, and I've been discussing issues for years, and nobody gets the point. Same thing with my father. You know what I mean? I've been telling him what my boundaries are for years. I choose not to be around your wife. I'm choosing not to come to certain holidays or birthdays or events because I choose not to be around your wife, and your wife doesn't respect my boundaries. And time again, my father refuses to respect my boundaries when it comes to that. My choice to not be around her. He constantly blames me for why I miss out on certain things, refuses to take accountability for how he acts and how he coddles that situation and how he enables the situation, and just puts it all on me. So I'm at the point with my father right now, present day, August 10th, 2020. I'm at the point where if you're not going to respect my boundaries and you're not going to defend me against personal attacks on me from your side of the family, if you're going to make excuse after excuse for every single person who's ever abused us in your life, well, then I don't need you in my life. I don't want you in my life, and I don't need you. That's where I'm at, right? Because he refuses to listen, and he has refused to listen. And sometimes it be like that, you know? Sometimes you just gotta, even your parents, fucking distance yourself or cut the whole thing off if they don't respect what you're saying or refuse to listen, right? So this advice comes from a place of do this if you know that the person you're doing this with is going to take into consideration what you're saying. If they respect you enough that they don't want to lose you, and you know that, they're going to listen and take into account what you're saying, then do it. Then speak up. Then sit down. Have a sit down chat. Even if you got to write certain things down, certain bullet points down, so that you're getting your point across to the person. But only do it when you know that the person is going to listen. And to me, it's like, give that person 3 chances. If you have the same conversation with them about the same issue 3 times in a row or 3 times, and they still don't take anything into account, and they don't take anything into consideration what you've said, then that tells me they're not listening, and you just need to walk away from the situation. You know what I mean? Don't waste your fucking time. But also, if somebody's bringing forth to you an issue, it's your job as a partner, as a daughter, as a mother, to listen. Just to fucking listen. Don't respond. Don't get defensive. Listen. It's hard. It is hard to hear about ourselves. Okay? I watched a video last night of a Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him. A Jordan Peterson lecture. He's a psychologist in Canada. He's sometimes controversial. He can be political at times. I don't really necessarily follow his politics at all. But I came across, I don't even really follow his psychological lectures. You know, I've heard him talk a couple of times, and I wasn't honestly really impressed by what he had to say. But I came across this lecture of his from, you could tell, a while ago. And basically what he was saying was, in relationships, what we need to do, this was just last night I came across this. In relationships, what we need to do as partners, as effective partners, is at times we have to help our partner criticize us. We have to be so open to the criticism that we're almost, if they can't articulate it the best way, not that we're putting ourselves down or whatever, but we have to, basically what he was saying is we have to be so self-aware that we can criticize ourselves with our partner without getting defensive and getting crazy. Because it's only at that point that we're criticizing ourselves that we can make the change and change the behavior. And he also made a good point. And this was like a 7-minute clip, not even. I think I watched 5 minutes of it, right? He also made the point to say, and this I thought was very, very profound. And I'm going to actually take this with me into, my next relationship. Arguing, you can argue. Somebody comes to you and says, hey, baby, honey, boo-boo, you did X, Y, Z, and that upset me, right? Even if you know that you did it and you know you were wrong, you could sit there and argue back, okay? And you can be such a good arguer that you win that argument. And what he said, for lack of better words, is that winning the argument doesn't make any changes. You just won the argument, and you can move on with your life. And okay, great. Good for you. You won the argument in that moment. You won, and you both move forward. But you won the argument and you're not making any changes, so it's only a matter of time before the behavior continues and bothers your partner again, and it's brought up. And then what are you going to do? Win that argument. But winning the argument doesn't fix the issue, is what he basically was saying. Winning an argument doesn't fix an issue in a relationship. It's just winning an argument. You just were able to argue well enough that your partner got tired, or whatever the fucking case may be, and you moved on with the day. But fixing the issue is fixing the issue. Fixing the issue means that issue doesn't come up anymore, and you can genuinely move forward and pass the issue because it's fixed. And we as partners, we as significant others, or just participants in any relationship, whether romantic or platonic, friendships, family, whatever it is our duty to listen so that we can fix those issues. And if all of us did that, every single one of us did that, made it a mindful point that when somebody brings up, without being an asshole, if somebody brings up something that we may need to change that bothers that person, as long as they're being rational, as long as they're not berating us or belittling us about it, as long as they're coming from also coming from a place of compassion and a place of love, it's our job to listen so that we can fix the behavior and fix the issue. If my partner's coming to me and saying, hey, it bothers me when you, I don't even know, when you call certain people by certain pet names that you don't know, it makes me insecure and gives me some sort of bad feeling, gives me a knot in my stomach. If they came to you and they were like, you do this, this, and this, and blah, 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 no. Nobody's going to listen to that. Nobody's going to listen to you if you come out the gate like that, pointing fingers or whatever. If you saw my live stream, you saw that my sister and my mother got into a fight yesterday. And it was because my mother came out the gate pointing a finger. And when you come out the gate like that, out of anger, out your neck, out of pocket, at somebody, yeah, we're human. You're going to get a defense mechanism because that person's going to feel attacked. So if you come to somebody and you say, hey, I feel not, you make me blah, blah, blah. No, I feel as though I feel insecure when you do X, Y, Z. It makes me upset. It hurts my feelings, right? That person would be a dick to argue with you in that manner. But if you came out your neck to somebody and you were like, you have to blah, 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 that person's not going to look like a dick if they argue back because you fucking started. You started with a fight. You came out the gate trying to fight. And you got a fight you got. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be mindful of how we address certain issues. And we also have to be mindful of how we receive the addressing of certain issues. Nobody's saying that if somebody's coming out their neck to you, that you have to sit there and just be open-minded and compassionate. What you shouldn't do is fight back with somebody who doesn't know how to effectively communicate and is attacking you. What you should do is essentially walk away and tell them, listen, you're not handling this the correct way. You're attacking me. I feel attacked. You go in your corner, I go in my corner. And when you can speak to me like a normal human being and articulate the correct way how you're feeling, I have no problem listening to you. But I'm not going to sit here and have fingers pointed in my face or whatever the case may be, right? Fucking communication, effective communication. Yelling and screaming is not communication. That's barbaric behavior. And it doesn't solve anything. Nobody will ever listen to a person who's yelling and screaming like a fucking banshee. But if you come from a good place and you come from a place of love and a place of just expressing yourself as a human being and expressing your feelings, if that person dismisses you, you didn't bring it in a bad way. They're dismissing you because they're an asshole. And only they are the asshole in that situation. You know what I mean? But if you're coming like an asshole and that person responds to you out of defense, you were the asshole first. But if it turns into a screaming match, then yeah, okay, now you got two assholes for the price of one. You know what I'm saying? So we have to learn how to be receptive and accepting of criticism. And the beginning of that, to me, the start of that, it begins with ourselves. Being able to look at ourselves and criticize ourselves and be self-aware and know. And again, this doesn't mean put yourself down, because I'm not down with that. And you know that. I'm down with it. Build yourself up and love yourself and know that you're worthy and you're deserving, but also be aware of your shortcomings. Be aware of the things you need to change. I know that I'm a fucking amazing partner. I know that I am. Nobody can tell me anything differently. But at the same time, I know that there are certain things I need to change. My lackadaisicalness sometimes. Sometimes I can be inconsiderate. Sometimes I can be a little avoidant. And I'm working on it. But I'm self-aware of it. So if somebody were to come to me and bring that point to me, like, hey, I don't like that you do this. I don't like that, you didn't consider my feelings here. Because I've already criticized myself, because I'm already self-aware of that, it's not going to come as a shock. I'm not going to be like, oh, you think that I didn't consider you? I'm perfect. You know what I mean? We have to understand that we're not fucking perfect. But we mainly need to understand that communicating effectively is how change is made. And again, you can size this down to a personal relationship, or you can blow it up to the current state of political affairs. Of you have one side over here who can't deal with criticism and the other side who can't deal with criticism. And when two people are disagreeing from either side, instead of them coming to each other with intelligible arguments, it turns into a name calling fest. It turns into well, you're an asshole. Well, you're an asshole. You know what I mean? And nothing gets solved. Nothing will ever be solved with that type of toxic environment. It's crazy that we can recognize that toxicity on a grander scale, but we can't recognize it within ourselves for some reason, within our own personal relationships, with our parents, with our significant others, with our children. You know what I mean? I've told my sister before, tone down your yelling. You don't need to yell to get your point across. We don't. As a matter of fact, yelling is only going to prevent you more from getting your point across. A child, any human being, is not going to receive that. They're not going to take it in. The only thing it's going to do is cause trauma and animosity. Why add to that? Why can't we just, as people, be the change that we want to fucking see in the world? If we can start with our personal relationships, maybe we can create a ripple effect. Start communicating effectively with our loved ones, and then teaching our loved ones, especially the children, how to communicate effectively. It's a skill. Communication is a skill. It's something you have to work on. It's not something that, and I mean, to be quite honest, most of us don't acquire the skill, because our parents fuck us up and then their parents fuck them up and so on and so on. And it's a fucking vicious cycle. But if you're watching this, you have the power and the ability to break that cycle and create healthy coping mechanisms, healthy communication skills, and overall a better world. Because if I'm teaching my children how to communicate effectively, then when my child has an idea that he or she wants to bring forth to society, or a belief that he or she wants to bring forth to society, he or she is not going to take a radical approach. They're going to be very, very rational about their delivery and how they act. You know what I mean? You could literally take this idea and put it into any scenario. Take the friggin' Black Lives Matter movement. You know, the argument on the right for against the Black Lives Matter movement was their delivery, right? While I think that's a bullshit statement, because there are a lot of people on the right who just don't want to back the movement because they believe certain things and refuse to open their mind about the movement. A lot of those people on the right who were against the Black Lives Matter movement said, well, you know, when you're looting and you're violent and you get crazy, you automatically lose the argument. Well, it's the same thing when those same people get pissed off and start calling other people names in the midst of an argument, or like my aunt, start attacking personally. Well, at that moment, the minute you start attacking somebody personally is the minute you lose the argument, right? And you can size this down to relationships. Again, the minute you come out the gate, out your neck, pointing fingers and screaming at somebody, acting like a barbarian, even if your argument holds merit, even if what you're trying to portray is the right idea, even if you have the facts to back it up, the minute you deliver it in that certain way is the minute you fucking lose the argument. Period. I tell my mother this all the time because she has an issue with it. I tell my sister this all the time because she has the same issue. And again, it's the whole reason why the two of them fight the way that they fight, because they don't know how to speak to one another. They cannot and have not sat down with one another and literally just listened and said, this is why. This is why I feel this way. This is why. Instead, the two of them at separate points get into screaming matches with one another. And nothing gets solved. And then again, it's an argument. So they get into an argument. One person wins the argument. They move forward. They apologize for saying the shit that they said, the surface shit, like, hey, you're an asshole, you're this, you're that. They apologize for that. And then they move forward. And not ever do they get to the meat and potatoes of the argument or the reason why they're arguing in the first place. So nothing ever fucking gets solved. And I hope this makes some sort of sense. I hope what I'm saying resonates. Learn to fucking communicate. If we can learn to communicate, if we can learn to trust ourselves to articulate the correct way, if we can learn to trust others to receive it the right way, if we can entrust ourselves to be, when we're on the receiving end of criticism, to not be assholes and just actively listen and be more compassionate and empathetic human beings, we would live in a much better fucking world. And our relationships wouldn't be as estranged as they are or can be. But again, we also have to recognize that there are some people out there who will always refuse to listen, who will never take accountability for their actions, and will always blame others for things that they do. Those people, you don't need those fucking people. Get rid of those fucking people. Those people are not necessary. Whether it's your dad or your sister or your ex or this or that, whoever the fuck it is. If you have somebody in your life who you continually raise issues to or speak your boundaries to, and they don't respect them, and they constantly are, they're constantly telling you why it's your fault when you know for a fact it's not your fault, that person needs to be kept at a safe distance, maybe a close distance, however you feel comfortable. You know what I'm saying? But communication. We need to learn how to communicate with one another, and we need to learn how to be more empathetic. We need to learn how to stop pointing fingers at everybody else and take accountability for the way we are and the things that we say and we do. I'm very much of the mind state of when somebody comes to me and says, almost to a fault, where I get myself in fucking trouble on the other end of the spectrum, where I'm allowing people to just walk all over me, like, i.e. my past relationships. When somebody comes to me and tells me I've made them feel a certain way, or I've done a certain thing, I literally listen and try to be empathetic as I possibly can be. And I apologize. But again, only apologize if you truly mean it. Don't apologize to shut somebody up. Because an apology without any meaning behind it is just a broken promise. And you're not creating trust that way. If you feel a certain way, or you don't feel as though you should be apologizing, don't do it. Apologies have lost their meaning because we think that just the word the words I apologize fix this. No, that's not what fixes the situation. I apologize is a promise. It's a contract between you and that person. When you say I apologize to somebody, you're saying I'm sorry that I did this. I will change going forward. That is the contract. And the reason why I apologize or I'm sorry resonates is because in that person's mind that you're saying I'm sorry to, you understand what they're saying. You empathize with what they're saying. If you don't truly empathize with what the person is saying, if you don't truly believe that what they're saying is valid, do not apologize. Because when you apologize, you also have to take the further action to fix whatever it is you're apologizing about. You have to, that I'm sorry is your way of saying, it's your verbal contract to the person, your partner, where you're saying, I'll never do it again. So you have to come prepared when you apologize to be more mindful of that action that needs change. And be prepared to change it. And be prepared to catch yourself in certain habits. You know what I mean? There's so many things that I want to say. But again, this is a little tidbit inspired by the fight between my mother and my sister, if I'm being completely honest. If they're watching, y'all need to talk. Y'all need to listen to one another. Let's listen to each other. Let's be more open to just simply listening to what the other person has to say. And if we've done something wrong, instead of calling names, name calling doesn't solve anything. You'll never, ever, ever hear me calling somebody a piece of shit, an asshole, this and that in an argument. Ever. Even when I was in my past relationships, you can ask any one of my ex-girlfriends. I'll never, ever call somebody a name. Because to me, there's no point in it. It's the only thing you're doing is hurting the other person by calling them a name. You know? So instead of doing that, let's listen to one another. Let's be empathetic. Let's be loving. Let's come from a place of heart and not a place of anger. And with that being said, I'm going to end here. How long have I been going? 35 minutes is a good amount of time. I'm going to end here. I hope this sheds some light. I have many more episodes that I want to do, things I want to talk about. Maybe I'll have my sister and my mother on to discuss their issues. I think that would be a really interesting podcast. Let me know if you want to see that. If you saw my live stream yesterday on TikTok, or you go to Franco's Fan, that's the fan page, the TikTok fan page run by my friend Danny. There's a little tidbit from that live stream that I spoke about, when you're in a relationship and you have kids, if your child doesn't respect or like the person that you're with, listen to them, because kids have intuition. I think that sparked up a whole conversation about some serious issues. So I am trying to get in touch with some mental health professionals, maybe having them on the podcast, doing a podcast episode about that. I don't know when that'll be, because to be quite honest, I don't trust many people, and I want to make sure that if I'm having a mental health professional, especially something about mental health, or serious traumatic issues, or traumatic events in people's lives, if I'm discussing it, I want to have the right person, the right fit. So I may ask around, but that's hopefully going to be coming in the future. So, stay tuned for that. The secret word is fuck. I don't know. The secret word is fuck. If you've listened this far, let me know by just commenting fuck. Let me know what the secret word is. Because if you know the secret word, then it tells me that you've listened up to this point. I love you guys very much. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope you got something out of this. Until next time. Peace out, everybody.